morning, I'm Claire Murphy. Welcome to the Solo Bureau. Coming up this morning, we'll check in on what's been happening around the world over the weekend, including an escalation in the war between the US and Iran, the death of a Neighbours and Home and Away star, and why an Australian man was detained by ICE. But before we do that, here's what's been happening while you were sleeping, Monday, July 20. One Nation leader, Pauline Hanson, has spoken at a Conservative conference in the UK, claiming Australia has been flooded with migrants and gone completely woke over transgender rights. She also told the conference that she's copped flack for spending time with right-wing activist Tommy Robinson while she's been in the UK.
You know, I'm getting the feedback in Australia from the media saying, how dare I associate with Tommy Robinson? How dare I speak to him? How dare I go up to Luton to see what's happening there?
Liberal frontbencher Andrew Bragg told the ABC's Insiders that Ms Hanson was going out of her way to make life harder for minorities.
If you want to have a free and fair society, then you don't go out of your way to make life harder for people who are in a small minority. That's always been my view, that in public life you should try and use whatever power you have to make life easier for people, not harder.
Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen has announced a range of social media reforms, saying families need new ways to protect their children online. Under the changes, social media companies could be forced to identify anonymous accounts accused of trolling. The Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal granted demasking powers to order platforms to reveal their identities. The government would also lower the legal threshold to sue social media and AI platforms for negligence causing psychiatric harm to children. Currently, laws require families to prove a child has suffered a permanent impairment of at least 10% before they can pursue damages. That number comes after an assessment by medical practitioners who apply calculations to estimate the significance of a given injury. The changes would scrap that threshold for cases brought on behalf of minors, with further changes for adult victims to be considered. The Victorian opposition says these laws might never see the light of day, with the state election coming up in November. Ms Allen insisting that they will be introduced as a priority. The president of Lebanon, Joseph Aoun, will make his first trip to the White House, hoping to present his plan to President Donald Trump on how he aims to disarm Hezbollah and force Israel to withdraw from Lebanon. Aoun is the first Lebanese head of state in nearly 20 years to visit the White House, where he'll meet Trump face-to-face for the first time. Tuesday's meeting comes at a crucial moment for Lebanon as Israeli troops occupy an area in the country's south, leaving hundreds of thousands of Lebanese people displaced. The Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah has rejected the government's direct talks with Israel and efforts by the government to disarm them. The new Tasmanian AFL team is about to announce its first head coaching appointment, with former Port Adelaide leader Ken Hinkley reportedly in the position. Hinkley flew to Hobart yesterday to meet with Devils officials and deliver his final presentation to the board, who've reportedly sealed the deal to sign Hinkley over former Collingwood coach Nathan Buckley and ex-Sydney boss John Longmire. The Devils will announce his appointment at a press conference today. Melanie Chisholm has tied the knot with her Aussie man. Chisholm, best known as Mel C or Sporty Spice, married model, actor and screenwriter Chris Dingwall at the Lakes District in northwest England yesterday. Victoria Beckham was the only Spice Girl not in attendance. She's currently in the US with her husband for the FIFA World Cup, but she did reportedly design Mel C's wedding dress, a gift from her long-term bandmate and friend. That's your top stories. Next, what went down over the weekend? Okay, let's check in on Aussie news from the weekend first. An Australian man was thrown to the ground and had items taken, allegedly by ICE agents, who fled when they were confronted by someone filming them. Phu Nguyen is originally from Vietnam but is an Australian citizen, ICE posting online that he'd overstayed his visa. They tried to arrest him at an airport in Las Vegas on Monday, but when they were confronted, they walked away, allegedly taking some of Mr. Nguyen's personal items and leaving him with a handcuff hanging on one wrist. He did manage to make his flight, but then reportedly was detained when he landed in LA. Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs is making urgent inquiries. Lao authorities say they can't determine the cause of death for several tourists, including 2 Australians, saying they don't have enough evidence to establish if their deaths were caused by the actions of any individual. In a statement on Saturday, the Lao Ministry of Public Security said authorities had not been allowed to conduct autopsies back in 2024 when the deaths from suspected methanol poisoning occurred, and therefore lacked the forensic evidence necessary to determine the cause of death. They did advise that the vodka made by the distillery in question did contain contain excessive levels of methanol. Holly Bowles and Bianca Jones died after drinking methanol-laced shots at the bar of the hostel where they were staying. They died along with a British national, 2 young women from Denmark and a US man. The Australian government says they are deeply frustrated and disappointed that the more serious charges are not being pursued. Australia's Foreign Ministry summoning Laos ambassador to Australia in Canberra. The federal government this weekend announced the response to the Special Envoy to Combat Islamophobia report, planning to address several recommendations. They include establishing an Islamophobia education task force, developing training for parliamentarians, the Australian Public Service, law enforcement and justice and legal professionals. It will fund mental health and wellbeing support for local organisations that support those dealing with hate and violence, support Muslim communities through multicultural grants with a focus on young Muslims and women, create a national information hub improving reporting responses and community support to report Islamophobia. It will also make it a legal requirement for universities to prevent and respond to Islamophobia and have created a framework to ban hate groups from operating in this country.
Islamophobia has no place in Australia. Every Australian deserves to be safe, respected and at home in our country.
That's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Overseas now, and the US has ramped up strikes against Iran after 2 of its troops were killed in an Iranian missile strike in Jordan. Since the war began between the US and Iran, 16 US service members have been killed with over 430 wounded. The US has now increased attacks across Iran in recent days, hitting energy infrastructure, port facilities, bridges and other targets as President Trump looks to pressure the Iranian regime. Iran has fired back at US allies in the Gulf region, hitting US bases nearby along with power and desalination plants, escalating tensions as the two sides inch closer to an all-out war. More than 900 wildfires are burning across areas of Canada, with smoke drifting down to blanket US cities, including Washington. President Donald Trump has warned Canada on social media, saying the US is being unnecessarily invaded by filthy, polluted and unhealthy air, the quality of which is dangerous and totally unacceptable. He wrote, "This is willful negligence, must of necessity be added to the tariffs Canada is currently paying." Republicans also sent the Canadian Prime Minister a letter calling for accountability. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, says sanctions and accountability won't help put out the fires.
So, a good neighbour, and I truly believe the Americans are good neighbours. If there's some politicians out there chirping away, well, maybe what you should do rather than complain is send support, send help, because we have done the exact same thing for our American friends, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Manosphere influencer brothers Andrew and Tristan Tate have been arrested in the US. Their arrest comes as British authorities seek their extradition on rape and sex trafficking charges. The pair taken into custody by US Marshals Service on Saturday on a sealed warrant. British prosecutors announced on Saturday that they were seeking the brothers' extradition on charges alleging they raped and trafficked women between 2010 and 2017. The dual US and British citizens moved to Romania in 2016, where they were arrested in 2022, accused of participating in schemes to lure women for sexual exploitation. They deny those allegations and the case did not move forward due to legal and procedural irregularities. The brothers are expected to appear in Miami's federal court early next week. In celebrity news this weekend, actor Terence Donovan has died aged 90. Appearing in both Home and Away and Neighbours in his time, he's the start of a family dynasty, with his son Jason Donovan also launching his career on Ramsay Street.
Oh, I don't know. Damage is done. Excuse me, I've got to move the sprinkler.
Jason announced the news of his father's passing on Sunday, saying, "Our dad was a huge character, larger than life. We will desperately miss him, but we take comfort knowing we were all here by his side in his final days." To sport, and England beat France 6-4 for the World Cup third-place playoff in Miami over the weekend. The final between Argentina and Spain is happening right as this episode is being published this morning. And the Australian coach of the Toronto Tempos WNBA team, Sandy Brondello, has been suspended for 1 game after an inappropriate comment aimed at player Angel Reese. The broadcast overheard Brondello say that Reese was a protected species. The Queenslander posted on social media saying she was sorry, that she used a phrase that she shouldn't have, and takes full responsibility. However, the racist tone of the comment has many saying an apology doesn't go far enough. That's your Monday Solo Bureau, folks. If you want me to check into a story in more detail for you, I can do that. You just got to send me the details. You can do that on Substack or via the Instagram DMs. Have a top day though today, friends. Hope the Monday-itis hasn't got you too bad. I'll catch you tomorrow.